Hi there, my name is Bruce Irish, and I'm doing a guest presentation on learning the English language. As you can see, our topic is written on the board, and some of the questions we might want to ask ourselves are as follows. Why is an English composition course necessary? Well, aside from the fact that practically any degree program requires its constituents to take English composition, it can be argued that English composition is perhaps the most important course that one could ever take in college, because it really essentially develops the very medium through which every other idea that we communicate flows. So English is really that medium through which we communicate ideas, and we communicate those ideas either through verbiage, in language, communication, speech, or in writing. So, some might ask, in an objection to the importance of English composition, they might ask a few questions or have some common objections, some of which might be as follows. One, well, what if my major isn't something like creative writing or English? Well, I'll rebut this in some of my future rebuttals. Secondly, some would say, well, what if I don't like to write? Well, my question would be, well, do you have any innovative or complex ideas that you would potentially like to communicate or share? And as forgetful human beings that we can sometimes be, wouldn't it make sense sometimes to make a record of your ideas? So therefore, it becomes necessary to know how to communicate ideas, and because we're forgetful beings, it's good to record those ideas for future use or for someone else to reference. So another idea would be, is there an objection or is there a position that you feel very strongly, a belief that you feel very strongly about? Wouldn't it seem necessary to be able to articulate those ideas into a structured argument, and to be able to analyze exactly what the opposition, the proponent of another idea who opposes you, the opposition might be saying? Again, in college, that's really the place where we we learn to communicate complex ideas. And we really need to master the medium through which we convey those ideas. So the English language essentially is the medium. Some other objections that would follow, and just kind of getting back to that first one, what if my major isn't something like creative writing or English? Well, we're not necessarily trying to make authors of best-selling novels out of everybody, but essentially in every discipline, and that's really what I'm beginning to demonstrate, in every discipline, English really has a very important role. So let's give some examples. How does it apply to something if I'm in accounting or business management? Well, we need to know how to speak very technical language and convert that into plain English. The ability to explain in writing or in word highly technical concepts in a very user-friendly fashion to a layperson, per se, or in layman language, especially to non-finance individuals or a non-financial audience, is essential today, because the business you work for depends on what the data that you're crunching is saying. But the business frequently struggles to understand and interpret the numbers the way that, say, you do, or you're going to school to learn how to do. So it's very good to be able to convert the highly technical language into layman terms, and with that, it necessitates, it requires a good understanding of a good command of language. Another application for somebody who might be in accounting or business is to be able to clearly and effectively write proposals and to employ language to garner support, maybe from a potential outside party or support, or an organization that might be funding you or loaning you money or something, or granting you funds. And the structure of that kind of writing would fall in another subcategory of English, which is somewhat a nature likened to the persuasive essay writing structure. So there are quite a few applications in the business management and accounting realm. And of course, even with a proposal, there is a formalized structure. If you're writing a proposal, trying to get some grants or some funding or anything of that nature, you need to be able to persuade. There's an art to that, somewhat of a rhetoric to that. For example, the model for a proposal goes something like having an executive summary. State the rationale for why you're putting the proposal together, and summarize what you're trying to say in the executive summary. So you would have like an executive summary. It just kind of summarizes really what you're trying to convey. You have a statement of your need, so you state your need. And in the summary, and it's good because many times, whoever's reading it wants to get to the point of what you're saying, so they want to see everything kind of summarized initially. Then you state your need. You want to then go into the details of your project. So give a detailed description of the project that you're needing the funding for. Project description. Then you give your budget analysis, go into some of the more fine technical details of how the project, how you plan for it to be financed. And then some of the organizational details follow that. You provide information about the beneficiary organization, its mission, its stakeholders, who it serves, the scope of the program and services, etc. And then you want to have a conclusion. And I know I've skipped a few, but the essence of it is just to show you that there is a standardized structure, and both the beginning and the end sort of summarize or kind of encapsulate and reinforce the ideas that you talked about in the bulk of your proposal. So, maybe how does it apply to somebody in the hard sciences? And by hard sciences, I'm referencing somebody who's maybe a biologist, a chemist, a physicist, a medical scientist, a doctor, a mathematician. Well, these individuals often seek to publish reports of their research, and these reports are often read by fellow colleagues. Also, grants for research may be based on clear and well-formed cases for the necessity of such research, and are oftentimes written proposals, somewhat similar to how we just stated, trying to garner funds for the research. So in order to get funding, they need to get these papers published in journals, and they need to get them approved and edited and things like that. So depending on the nature of the journal, really, is that would then tell you the extent to which this editing and tailoring would need to be done. But scientists often need to be able to translate extremely technical terminology into layman's terms, and relatable terminology. They need to be able to demonstrate the applications and effectiveness of their research, which may mean converting tons of numbers into meaningful words for the interests of maybe granting organizations or institutions, or if there's businesses that they're trying to cooperate with, to show the applications of the work. Also in the hard sciences, record keeping is a very integral part of experimental execution. It's very important to keep records of your steps. You always want to know the steps that you took in developing a groundbreaking procedure. So it's very important to be able to document those. And if somebody wants to reproduce those steps, or if you have a supervisor who needs to reproduce those steps, you want to see exactly what you did. So it's very good to have clear communication in order to be able to allow people to replicate your steps or to present or communicate such groundbreaking ideas at a symposium or a seminar or departmental meetings or things of that nature. Another case study of the importance of learning the English language and having a good command of it could be found in engineering. And I would be able to have a sort of a personal understanding of this as a result of working in the field. A document called a functional requirements specification, abbreviated FRS. Some people use different abbreviations, but the point being, this is a very important document in the engineering field, because it basically helps us to go from, there might be a particular request by a user or a client. They might have a particular need for some particular kind of a device or piece of software that needs to be built, and this document particularly specifies how that piece of software or that particular piece of machinery will work. So it details exactly how a product is supposed to look, how the aesthetics of it, how it's supposed to work, from the most minute detail to the most obvious. From this, the engineers then develop products, and other engineers use this very document to create tests to determine whether the developed product is actually performing according to the functionality specified in this document. So this is what, if I had a product, I don't know, whatever that might be, this is going to be built, and the way that it's built, its functionality, what it looks like, is all going to be documented in there. And we need to know if this is actually built correctly. You have your client who wants something. Those desires get translated into very specific requirements that need to be then looked at by the engineers and then kind of developed into a product. And once you get your product, you need to actually make sure that your product is matching what the client wanted. And what the client wants is actually in the functional requirement specification. So you have engineers that build it. I'll just put E for engineers. They build it. And you have engineers who test the product against the requirement specification. Now you see the importance of this document, because what the client wants is in the document. What the engineers build is based on the document, and what the other engineers test is also based on what this document is saying. There's other documents involved, but this is a very important document. So if the specification is written poorly or in a confusing way, products can be developed incorrectly and or tested incorrectly. This would mean many revisions would need to be made to the document if, for example, the person who penned the document based on the client requests didn't hear what the client wanted properly, or just had poor writing skills in terms of translating what the client wanted into something that everybody else could read. Or let's say whoever wrote the document wrote it in such a way that was poor, and therefore that affected how the product was built. And if the product is built in a different way than what is specified in the document, then this affects the way that the tests are carried out, because they're based on a product that's not matching what the requirements are saying. So therefore there comes a need to revise this, and that wastes a lot of time, and a lot of money can be wasted because this document has been written incorrectly and maybe had a lot of confusion and grammar mistakes, which really could have transformed the way that the actual product came out. So from the planning phase to the product launch phase, communication is very important. Learning and mastering the English language, it enables a company to prevent loss of profit, and also disables competitors from launching maybe their product first on the market. In fact, I've actually known individuals who have thoroughly scrutinized such documents, for it's their job to do so, and I've entered what are called defects against such a document. These are formal requests that the document needs to be revised in certain areas. In some cases, such revisions proved to be rather necessary to the flow of the project, as the nature of the errors hindered some of the understanding as to what exactly was being said. So in my experience, I've noticed that the more technical or complex the field would happen to be, for example, engineering or mathematics, it may become more necessary for English to serve as that mediator. So, just some applications.